This is the culture of convenience, balancing the needs of your business with the needs of your people.
Hey, it's Jeff Kahler here with another episode of the Culture of Convenience. And today, Kelly, we are going to be discussing interviewing.
Is it because interviewing is needing to happen for a new producer? Just checking.
If you check the website, yes. No, actually, interviewing is a very, very challenging because I'm a little too honest.
Oh, you mean so as the president, you're saying you don't interview other people well?
Correct.
Or when you've tried to get jobs in the past?
The first.
Okay, so as you interview people, you think you're too honest?
I think I come across and tell people the truth, and that sometimes, I would say, gets me in trouble, but it shows through. I show who I am right up front, and sometimes people like holding that back. People like holding their cards, keeping them close to their vest.
So you play hard to get. You don't play hard to get.
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
So we just interviewed to get a new puppy at our house. Okay?
Okay. How do you
now,
do?
Imagine looking at this as like the, senior class at college, right? They're all coming out. So these puppies, they're all the same age, relatively, within a few hours.
And the breed of this is what?
Is a Jug, Jack Russell Pug.
Oh, is that what he is?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's so cute.
And his name is Beans.
Okay, so you obviously picked one.
Well, I didn't, but let's talk about this.
Okay, let's do it.
So the interviewing process would be where you would go and you would look at all of them.
Sure.
And you would make a decision to maybe interview them or look at, their potty schedule or but they're all the same. So it's
hard
not
to tell that kind
It
of
is
stuff.
hard to tell, and it's very early in the process. Now,
Sure.
I would also take the other dogs, Tater Tot and Pork Chop, with me to see which one kind of clamored and got along, and maybe there was a little bit more playful. But my wife has a different interviewing process. So what she does is the first one that comes over that gets up and gets his head in her neck,
Right.
wins.
So she's more of like the nurturer. You're like, how's my dog as a team player?
Well, they're going to have to interact.
Sure.
Right? So they're going to have to become brothers for all intents and purposes, right?
But at the same time, your wife has a good point because you want one that loves you right off the bat, but you want that chemistry with the dog, but then you also need him to get along with his brothers.
We're talking seconds, though. Every dog that typically would come up to her and lay there would nestle with her.
Right.
So are you really finding anything out that way?
Oh, you mean all the dogs love doing that?
Well, by nature, yes. Every one that she's ever, every dog that we've ever gotten has done that.
I've never interviewed a puppy,
Okay.
Jeff. This sounds like fun.
It is, and I would have done the process a little bit different, again, but that shows the difference in style. So there's completely different, interviewing styles.
I'm feeling a tie-in here to today's episode.
It's definitely going to tie in. I don't know how many more puppy references we're going to make, but I can just tell you that the process in picking the right person to build your culture convenience is big time. It's huge.
Okay. That seems like a good place to start.
Yeah. So, in last episode, we set this up to where how we recruit. So we wanted to make sure we recruited the right people. So we gave them the right, we understood that we had the right job description. We know what we're going to ask them, when we're going to ask them, and setting those up. Because, again, knowing what you want out of someone is huge. It's important.
It's the first step.
Yeah, just like picking a breed of dog.
Right.
Whether you want a big dog or you want your coffee cup knocked off your dining room table, or do you want just something knocked off the floor?
Or do you want a tail banging against a door?
Correct.
Because they want to go out and you're just like, oh, Lord Jesus.
Yeah, and so we're basically going to try to tie it all together today through the interview process and making sure that we're doing the right thing. So we now have the agreement on the job description, the things that we're going to do. We're now getting resumes. The spigot's turned on, right?
Sure.
So now we're getting applicants coming in, and that could either be a good thing or a bad thing. So you could be overwhelmed, right?
Right, or you can
Lots
get
of
one.
Underwhelmed, going, we need somebody fast, so we got to talk about that.
Okay.
Do we hire the right person, and do we wait?
Yeah.
If we don't get enough applicants, or if the applicant's not right, but they're close, so that funnel starts to build as we do those interviews. We do the telephone screening, which I'm sure you've maybe been on a few in your career.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we do the face-to-face, and we may need multiples of that. Then we talk about skills testing, and then on another episode, we'll talk about how you select and make an offer and negotiate and go on for all that.
Okay, cool. This sounds good.
Yeah.
I like where we're going because it kind of reminds me of, a lot of things in life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very vague, but I
Dating?
think it reminds me of dating. That's exactly what it does. Or picking a mate. Of course, you're not going to marry your employees always. You certainly can't marry every single one of them because that would be weird.
But if you think about it in the way of, a long-term relationship, you want them to come there and to be a contributor and be involved, and you want them to be there a long time. But for the most part,
you want people to
hiring,
stick around.
Yeah, the people to stay there, and you want that. And the interviewing process begins. So we'll get into that, and establishing that plan, making sure everybody's on the same page is really, really important, especially if you're doing a group interview.
Perfect. I'm excited.
All right. So we need to be prepared when we're setting up the criteria of success and how to weigh these candidates. It's really, really important because a lot of companies do well at this and a lot of companies suck at it.
Really?
They're just really, really bad because they don't have, in other words, if you and I are going to hire a candidate, a producer.
Hey.
I'm just saying.
Oh, God.
We would look at, how are we going to weigh that? How are we going to measure whether they fit our need?
Well, they're never going to measure up.
I know they're not, but I mean, as you look for a new host, okay? Experience, right? Education, all their qualifications. If it's a sales job, we'll change the job.
Sure.
If it's a sales job, do they have the right negotiation skills? Can they carry on the conversation?
Are they likable?
Can they ask for the sale? Okay. I mean, there's a lot of companies that hire a lot of sales folks that just don't. They never ask for the sale.
Always be closing.
Yeah, and that's the ABC.
Yes, it really is.
ABC, and then of course, do they have leadership skills, or do they follow the leader well? And so, the real motto for me here is that employee retention begins in the interview process. So you are now on stage to be the company that you want everyone to see you as. And
That's
it's really important.
That's interesting. So you think if you're going to keep employees, it begins when you begin your interview process.
Correct. And we'd start with like a telephone screening, whether they're calling in to you,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
And of course, some of these happen now with Zoom and other technology.
You got to be camera ready.
Well, but in this first interview on the phone, you also have to be ready to receive their call. So if you've asked them to call into your office and the administration staff's not ready for them, or they don't know who they are.
Sure.
There's somebody here looking for, calling in for Kelly.
Right.
That's unprofessional.
Sure.
You have to go about and make sure that the person answering the phone knows that you're expecting a call, who it is, and not asking them, may I ask who it is?
Mm-hmm.
You're expecting them.
Right. Absolutely.
So
Well, you did that with me. I mean, I had a phoner.
It's the red carpet.
Oh, wow.
You're laying that out. You're making sure. If you call them, you be prompt. You make sure you call. We had a call one time that we called the person and the window in their car was down.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they're riding down a road.
Right. It's a giant wind tunnel.
And you're thinking to yourself, did they think about this?
Did you ask them about it?
I did. I said, maybe we have a bad connection. And what it was actually a defect in their car. There was something wrong that their window had to stay down.
Yeah.
And their mechanism that rolls the window up was broke. But I was thinking, wouldn't you just pull over and pull into a shopping center? Or
yeah, seriously. Well, why didn't they?
I didn't ask.
Oh, so you never wound up hiring them?
No. We never did find out any further. But it wasn't only because of that, but that was a factor.
It's how they represented themselves. They didn't have enough common sense to pull over and just have the interview. And if you knew that somebody was calling you, maybe don't get in your car that doesn't have a window that goes up.
At the same point, it's about being prepared. And so I think that's hugely important for a company.
Was this during the pandemic, though?
This one was not. No.
Right.
But
No excuses.
No.
Get your
I'm
window
sorry.
up.
Hold on. I got to let me roll my car window up here. Hold on.
It's ridiculous.
Okay. And so if you're conducting a group interview, so if you and I were going to interview someone, like a sound engineer, we would make sure that Nick's shaking his head no. So he's saying no. He's
against that.
No, he's not for that. If you're conducting that, who's going to ask what question, so you're not walking on each other.
Oh,
nothing,
yeah. That's sloppy.
Nothing worse than that.
Not like we do that, Jeff.
No,
never.
No. Not at all. No, ever. Yeah, and so you make sure that the candidate, knows the expectation. We keep those to 30 minutes. And I do a traditional, non-traditional. I'll just give you a walkthrough of that real quick. So on my best practices for interviewing.
Okay.
So when we call, I take it and break it into 10-minute blocks. Okay, because I think it's equally important, and I'm on every call.
Okay.
So every person that comes to work here gets the phone interview with me first.
Gets the Jeff special.
Yeah, and I just tell them about the company, about our core values, about our mission statement, about who we are, how it got started, what I expect out of that role, because they have to fit. Just because someone's really, really good at marketing or graphic design or programming doesn't mean they're a good fit here.
Sure.
And so I want them to know who I am, what we're looking for, and how the organization, how they fit in, or how I see them fit in. Because no one can really display that as well as me, because I'm the one working with the team to make sure we're filling those positions. So that's important. I mean, not that the team doesn't have input, but here's what we're doing as we make a decision financially and so on and so forth. The second part is the candidate gets 10 minutes. Tell us about themselves and go through the process of their job, work history, and so on and so forth. And that's important because we're listening then.
Ooh, tell me what you're listening for.
So we're listening for how they, their work history, of course,
Oh, okay.
right?
Sure.
How they feel, also how they're communicating, how they're talking. Are they, talking in complete sentences?
Are they
broken
drunk?
up? Correct. Yeah. Have they been drinking before? Day drinking.
Slurred speech.
Gotcha. And, we're just listening for those characteristics to see, what they were most looking for in their job or what they liked. Again, we didn't ask them direct questions, but some people expound on that. Just go, I really like this about that job. It just was too far away. I like this about that job. And they get in that you're listening for those type of things.
So is there any kind of deal breakers in that moment where you're like, obviously a window down or somebody drunk? That's an obvious deal breaker. But can you think of a time where you thought, just don't? I mean, you've had to say no to people in the past. So.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And I think it really goes down to attitude. Then
Okay.
you can kind of hear their attitude, the way that they talk about that, also length of employment and history. And we listen for everything. As we look at a resume, if they have, too many jobs too close to each other, that's not always a deal breaker for me, because sometimes you work at a job and it just doesn't work out, and who would want to spend the rest of their life in work hell?
Right.
Again, you go back to the experience, the education, the qualifications. That's why you set that up front.
Right. That's kind of like your flashlight. That's going to keep things kind of more focused.
Correct. So I would say yes, but I think it's by the time we get done the traditional part, which is our HR department does that.
Okay.
So I do the non-traditional, then we let the candidate go through their process, their history, and then the traditional. And typically I step away from that. In other words, I excuse myself because
it's so boring.
No.
Oh.
Well, that too, but that's
but you
not.
tell me. You say.
And then they can talk to the HR department about their reservations or concerns, and we validate. Are you good at this software? And that kind of flushes things out. And I would say 90%, 95% when our HR team comes off the call, they have a thumbs up or thumbs down.
Really?
Yeah.
So that first impression is actually
Big.
very telling.
Very big for us.
And it's good that nobody wasted any gas coming in. We didn't do this long drawn out thing. It's like, let's just talk.
Yeah.
I like that.
So, back to on this telephone interview, make sure you're prompt. If you say you're going to call them at 10, you call them at 10. A lot of folks, are currently employed. It's out of respect. You don't call at 5 after. You wouldn't want them to show up at your job 5 minutes after every day. So you make sure you do your job. You make sure that when you're on there, you give clear, concise, and you stay on time.
Yeah.
If you tell them 30 minutes, that's what they've allocated. Don't go 35.
All right.
Okay? Now, if you're in the middle of that and they want to go on, you say, this is going to take us over. Is that okay? That's completely okay.
Right.
But you can get into those details and that level of interviewing if you're interested in that candidate during the face-to-face. I'm going to walk you through my journey.
Okay.
Okay? So now we bring you in. Now, our building has 3 entrances. It has an employee entrance, it has a production entrance, and it has a main entrance. And just to give you one example, we've had people, and our employee entrance, of course, is key card, so you can't get in.
Right.
And we've had folks show up there. So now we send out a map. We show them where to go. This sounds kind of mundane or no big deal, but imagine they're already stressed. You're rolling out the red carpet. Imagine the red carpet treatment, right? You want to make sure, because they're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them. And even if they don't come to work for your company, they're still going to say, you know what, that company made a decision, and however that ends, right? You're still, word of mouth speaks volumes.
It does. And I think it's important that it shows a level of care, that you don't want somebody traipsing around in their high heels trying to find the entrance of the door that's unlocked. It just feels crappy, especially if you're a man. You're not used to wearing high heels. So, I mean, why are you doing that?
It's terrible. And it's just bad.
Can you find size 12 naturalizers? It's not easy, okay? It's just...
Probably.
Oh, you did?
LeBron.
He doesn't wear high heels either, Jeff.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman.
He does wear high heels.
He does wear high heels, and they probably
what I
are
was
bigger
thinking
than
about.
size 12. So anyway.
That's for sure.
When was the last time you interviewed Dennis Rodman, though? What position
me
was
and
he looking
Kim
for?
Jong-un. Oh, no, that's another whole episode. We'll talk about that.
Okay, so the face-to-face. You send the map out.
Have you ever been to a doctor's office and they tell you it's like building 2411
Right.
suite, and you walk in and the directory's got 9,000?
Yes.
If you have a building like that or an environment or a hard-to-find location, make sure you do everything in your power to assist them because it's already nervous and
Right.
Frustrating.
They've already
enough
got
to get
the
job.
armpit sweat going.
Correct.
And they just don't need it anymore.
Correct.
Right.
Send a reminder. A lot of people say, well, I don't want to send it. They should be reminding themselves that they have a job interview. It's just a courtesy. Be ready for them. Smile. Welcome them to the company. Ours, we have a monitor behind the admin, and we put their name on there.
I didn't get that.
Okay.
Dang it, Jeff.
These are for candidates we want to stay. No. The monitor was off. We lost the remote.
Oh, don't even give me lost the remote.
That was a good one, wasn't it, Nick?
No.
Nick's shaking his head. Yes, he agreed with that one.
Find the remote and get my name up there by 12, or I'm out. Okay.
And the crown. We want and with the crown on. Thank them for coming. Avoid not a lot of small talk in the beginning because that can get you into some legal traps.
Why would that get you into legal traps? Because then the person's like, oh, they must love me.
Or they say they may not have hired me because I divulged that information.
Oh, like I told you that I was going through something.
Where I live.
Yeah.
What's going on in my life.
Got it.
So just try to avoid those.
Well, that's actually a really good tip for somebody being interviewed then.
Yeah.
Because I always come right out of the gate with, some childhood traumas that I've undergone. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Just anything to break the ice. But now I'm seeing that's probably not the best way.
Yeah, but then there wouldn't be any time for the interview.
Exactly.
Or the couch might be a better
Do you
approach.
mind if I lay down during this
Back
interview?
to doctor's offices and having to go to a doctor's office.
Okay, so avoid the small talk because small talk is just going to lead us down into rabbit
Correct.
trails that we don't need.
You know?
Okay.
And then, make sure that the interview environment, wherever you're interviewing this person or, your team, it's comfortable for them. It's quiet. Okay. There's not a lot of traffic. I have a friend that does interviews. He has a home studio and he does them in his basement.
Ugh.
And that's all he's got, right? I mean, that's just what he's got right now.
Can't he just meet at a Starbucks? Like that would be a little bit more.
Well, the
less-
equipment, the studio equipment and the stuff that they're going to be using he does all of it in one. He does the thing, which we'll get into testing a little bit later.
Okay.
But, he does the whole interview there. He doesn't have multiple. It's just him. It's him and two other people.
I know, but when you say, hey, the interview is going to be in a basement, you automatically go, well, what episode of Saw am I going to be in? And,
Correct.
And how many legs am I going to have to saw?
And his mother-in-law lives with him. So she's in there
Oh,
cooking.
This is definitely a horror film.
No, she doesn't have any chainsaws or whatever, but it doesn't matter. I can walk in and, here's my mom. Here's my mother-in-law. Here's,
Mom,
Betty.
did you have to make cheese stew today?
Yeah, and it's like, you want some cookies? It's that's the welcome committee at the front door. It works, but it's not perfect. Either way, make sure the environment's clean. Make sure it's comfortable.
Okay.
Make sure that you have it to where it's quiet so that people aren't interrupting.
Got it.
And if you're going to do a group interview where you're going to have multiple people from your team, make sure the seating arrangement's predetermined because where the candidate sits, you want to make sure that they can see you, you can see them, eye contact. You're looking for those kind of things on the interview.
Right.
So just make sure that that's all thought out. Making sure that you offer the candidate something to drink. It's rude not to
Shots.
offer them. Yeah, whatever you got.
Body shots.
whatever you need to do. Make sure that you're not taking phone calls. Make sure your phone's on silent. Make sure it's not on vibrate either. The last thing you want sitting there and it's like, yeah, that's not going to work on. And we have a little table by where the interview person sits,
Okay.
and someone sat their phone and they had it on vibrate,
Oh, gosh.
and they were sitting there and it was, and they excused themselves and said, "Would you mind turning it off?" So
Okay, so one time, speaking of phones, I was in a big audition and I had my phone as a part of the audition because I do auditioning for commercials and stuff like that.
you can call it interviewing.
It was an audition, Jeff. I'm a star.
You are a star.
Okay. So anyway, I'm going through it and I'm talking about this gym bag. And these like 4 or 5 people are like, the casting director's there, everybody's there. And I go, so sometimes, and I'm doing my presentation, I'm like, sometimes you're looking for a gym in the area. Suddenly, Siri pops on. She's like, searching for gyms in your area. And she just won't stop. And I'm like,
Did you accidentally hit the button?
No, I don't know how she heard me. She just started finding gyms. She's like, 1 downtown, North Broadway. And she's just screaming. And I'm like, Siri, stay out of it. And it was really took me off my game in my audition. And they all started chuckling. And I'm like, oh, Siri, she's always got to get involved. She's such a nosy.
Did you get the spot or the job?
Okay, let's move on to the next one.
All right, very good.
So
we want to also make gestures. In other words, nodding,
middle finger,
understand. Yeah, middle finger, whatever you got.
Flick somebody under the
peace
chin.
sign, thumbs up, great job. All that stuff.
Got it.
Sign language.
Right.
And then you want to listen attentively to their responses.
Okay.
Because that's going to matter. I mean, you're really, if this is your only interview, again, other than testing, you might as well dive in and ask the questions, ask the hard questions, and listen to those answers. So when I do a typical interview in person, now I've already talked to them. Okay. And so, again, I start out with, I dive a little deeper. I tell a little bit more about the story of the company, how it came about, what our core values, our mission statement, all those, the standard corporate things. But at the same time, I also get a little personal. I say, we're really, really weak here, and we need you to be really, really strong. And some in the HR department and some hiring managers, and again, whether you do this or not, but I would rather be honest with them and tell them where we're weak and where we need them to be strong than I would to try to wait for them to tell me and to get the answer, because they may not know.
Okay.
They might, a general position, it might be social media that you're looking for. Right. You need strength in social media. We're weak in that area, or we haven't filled that job. Even though you're coming for a marketing position, we need you to be really, really strong here.
Right.
Because if we're not, then what's the sense? I mean, if you're going to bring them in, you're going to bring them in to fail, or if that's not their strong suit. We've had that plenty of times. We need animation. We need a particular piece of software. If you're not good at that, why bring them in?
No, it makes no sense.
And so I'm pretty transparent about that. I come up front with that. I lead with that. Mm-hmm. And I say, in this job, where our company is as an organization, here's where we need you to be. And then we get into, quote unquote, the traditional, you go back and forth, you ask the questions, there's the STAR techniques.
Okay.
So the STAR technique is where you ask the candidate for situations that they've been in, okay?
Yeah.
Tasks that they've done or have worked with someone to do, actions that they have had to take care of from those situations, and then what were the results. So you have almost a measurable.
Okay. So what would that look like in a situation?
So let's say that you're working in a factory,
okay,
a manufacturing job, and the leader left, the supervisor. Okay, yeah. So the leader just quit for whatever reason.
He's fed up.
Okay, how'd it go?
Take this job
and shove it.
Yeah.
You're asking them, what did you do? Give me a situation where you had a lead. Okay, would be the setup question.
Okay.
So the leader left. I had assumed some of their responsibilities. They came to me and said, you got to have to cover these shifts or help with this task or do whatever, whatever that requires.
Right.
And then you would have to explain, hey, what was my actions? I took charge. I showed them I could lead. I showed them that even though my job didn't requirement, I had those skills. And then what are the results was we got the job done. We actually lowered the budget because we didn't have the salary of our supervisor.
Aha.
And it actually turned into an interview opportunity where it's like, well, maybe we could hire someone to do your job and maybe you could lead this. So that's how it could have. I interviewed someone that had that situation actually happen to him.
Okay. And did you wind up hiring them?
I ended up hiring them, but they didn't stay long because they moved out of state.
Rude.
Oh, I don't know why didn't they just?
That's probably another part of interviewing people, and I don't know if this is even part of it. But people get attached to people. Like if you're looking for a house and you look at a bunch of houses, the first thing they tell you to do is don't get attached. Don't get emotionally attached to these houses because unless you get it, you're going to be let down. And that has happened to me so many times. I get emotionally attached to houses. I cannot imagine how I would get emotionally attached to people that I interview. I'd be like, are we not best friends?
How about comfortable? Would that be?
What do you mean?
Like you're comfortable with them. You go, okay, I feel good about this person. This candidate, they're strong. They meet all the criteria.
Right.
To me, that's two different things.
Well,
one is
attached or comfortable. Like if you go through the house and you're like, I could totally picture my piano being in this corner.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And then they're like, sorry, it's better off or you don't get the house. You're like, what about my piano?
All right. So you're really, in this process, you're really, really looking for them to show their abilities, to show what they can do, to show their knowledge, depending on the field that you're hiring them for.
So is this the time of the show where you want to talk about our interview?
Yeah.
And that's how impressed you were with me.
That's what we're going to do. This is how we're going to give you the test right now.
Oh gosh, I'm the worst test taker in the world, Jeff.
No. I think we're fine. I think you'll do great. Nick, you have it queued up? He's shaking his head. Yes. Okay. Look on your monitor, and if you don't mind, grab the mouse, and you're going to be asked a series of questions.
Okay, just so you know, I had a...
Let's not get into testing it.
Okay, let's not get into testing.
I'm going to wrap up the interview.
Okay,
just to make sure that I have this covered, right?
Okay.
Because this is the time to ask questions. Don't wait. Don't think you're going to have a second interview. Don't waste their time. Don't waste your time. If you have a tough question, if you have something you want to know, if you have something you're like hesitant to ask, reasonable, go ahead and ask it now.
Right.
Unpack it. Let it go. If you have a reservation, see how they react. You might as well do it now because it really is. This is the most important investment you'll make in your company by far.
Kind of brings us back to that dating piece.
It definitely does. Yeah. You're going to, if you're going to bring this one home, introduce them to the parents, whatever, sure. You might as well make a good one here. And I know a lot of my colleagues, a lot of the people I worked with, and I've been taught by a lot of the folks that work here.
Right.
I've learned. Because I wouldn't ask the tough question. Who wants to ask someone the tough question? No one.
What would be a tough question?
It sounds to me like you have very little experience in what we're looking for, but you might want the opportunity to learn. Is that a fair question?
Oh. So it almost feels insulting, and you're kind of like calling somebody out on the carpet, and it kind of feels a little confrontational.
Yeah, if you don't know the technical terms, and I'm not talking about the jargon. I'm not talking about that.
Right,
I'm talking about the facts of the job.
Right. If somebody just hasn't had the experience, but they're really eager, and you say that to them, it might make them be like a little taken back a little bit.
But there's also that this could be a training. In other words, you might want to invest in someone that doesn't have all the experience because you want them to learn, grow, and develop. You want them to come in and become that person, or if you're rolling out a new division. So I can't stress it enough. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions here. This is the time to do it. This is you're on stage. You talk about performing. Lights are on you.
Right.
The audience is set. The stage curtains are open. Don't miss this opportunity because you will regret it every single time if you don't do it right.
Yeah.
It's that important.
You'll lie awake at night and you'll be like, why didn't I ask that?
In other words, you're going to have to go back through the process again because this person's not going to stay. If you don't ask the hard question and they don't know enough, if you're already having that gut feeling that you don't think they know enough about the job that you're asking them to do, and you don't ask that hard question, well, then what's going to happen is they're going to come, right? Let's say you go and they make it through. They make it through testing. They get hired. Well, then you're going to be back staying up at night doing the same process over again because you didn't get the right candidate.
Okay. Well, then I don't want to live in that
wash,
world.
rinse, repeat. Nobody wants to do that.
Okay.
It's a very similar process to testing. A lot of the same in-person interviews. And again, multiple interviews, you can talk about that. That's company by company. If you really like a candidate and you still have some underlying questions that came up in your postmortem, talking, to each other and Kahler, with the team.
Sure.
I think it's important to bring them back. I think that extra interview, that extra time, because there are people that want to get the job filled. That's their job. As some recruiters, I just need to get this job filled. That's my job.
Yes.
And that's dangerous.
It is dangerous because like we were talking about earlier, you wind up getting somebody in there that just has a pulse, but they got a crappy attitude. They have an entitled mentality. What about me? Their hands out all the time like, I didn't get that. You've worked with sour grapes before. And it's one bad apple brings the whole bunch down.
And they're not happy.
Well, that's what I mean, because they're sour.
No, that's what I mean. And the unhappiness shows. And it's back to your apple theory. Okay, so now we're into the ability and the testing part. So they've talked the game, right? They've answered your questions. Let's say you're completely satisfied. You dug in the areas that you want to really learn about them. They've answered everything perfectly. Everything's good to go. All the players have signed off. Everybody said, let's bring them in for a test. So for me, this was a process we didn't have in place 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And so in going back after every bad hire, are just bad fit.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that the candidate was bad, because that's not always the case. It's not always that the candidate's bad. It's just the fact that they're not a good fit for you, and that's the most important thing. You're not everybody's cup of tea.
Sure.
That's okay. Now we're doing the testing part, and so I went to each manager, and I said, "Give me a test that you would be able to look at, okay, within 1 hour, and know this person has, at least at a high level, the understanding of what you're going to require them to do." Okay. So,
Okay.
and when I said make 2, because we don't want to give the same test, as far as that. So that's just, each person made 2 tests. And now when you come in, and so I'll give you an example here, but to set this up, okay, to set this up, the same process. Make sure you communicate with what time, make sure you're on time, make sure that if you have any other person that's going to be there to help conduct the test or
If they have to dress a certain way.
whatever.
I hate that when people don't tell you what to wear.
I'm sure I'm performing too.
It's a stressor. Even if it's a job interview, sometimes you think you have to dress like super corporate, and you're like, you get there and everybody's in khakis, and you're just like,
Flannel?
why? Or your flannels, and you're just like, why did I dress like I'm going to the legislative courtroom?
And then you feel out of place.
Then you feel dumb.
Well, and again, if not that, the people on the other side interviewing you should feel that way, because they should have instructed you. Like, if you start to see where someone feels uncomfortable or out of place, here they are. They're, like you said, dressed to the nines, and you're sitting there wearing jeans.
It just makes you feel like, okay, so I feel like that's stupid. And also, here's the other thing, though. If you just tell people, dress as casual, or dress as work appropriate, or dress as, business casual, that just helps people. Because say you're trying to get a job at like a convenience store. Are you really going to dress like with a pencil skirt and heels? I mean, you obviously would look horrible in that. But, I mean, it's just not your body
Thank
shape.
God.
It's just not going to work for you.
I think it all goes back to the communication.
Right.
It's your job as the employer to tell the candidate, this is what we expect from you during this process.
Mm-hmm.
And when that's not met, you can always improve. So there's continuous process improvement. All those theories work.
Of course. Always be getting better.
But when you don't do it, you now put the candidate at risk of losing the opportunity because they may feel a certain way.
Yeah.
It's unfair to them. So you have to pull the mirror out, and after each interview go, where did we miss our mark? And when you're building that culture of convenience, when that becomes remember, back to, you got to be deliberate. You want to be focused. You want to be laser sharp. If you don't have that mirror and you're looking at yourself saying, what did we do wrong here? Someone showed up that was not in the proper dress attire.
Sure.
Did we do our job?
Right.
Did we not communicate well? They got lost. Now, again, there's certain people that just get lost. So tying that all together, let's get back to the testing.
Let's do it.
All right. So the testing, a lot of the standards are the same, because your testing environment might be different than your interviewing environment. Is it quiet? Is it safe? Do you have all the things that you need?
Shots are ringing out.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh my God, where are we?
I worked for a short time helping a gentleman out in an Avon cap manufacturing site where they make the caps for Avon.
Oh, you mean the cosmetics?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. And you talk about, it was very loud, so earplugs and all that. But again, oil everywhere. It was just because of the machinery. This is back in the 80s.
Okay.
And I only worked there 2 weeks to help a guy out.
Sure.
But it was just ungodly awful. And the guy interviewed me and just said, hey, 2 minutes. Yeah, can you lift 40 pounds? Just so simple, fill out a one-pager, done. There was probably not technology then, like it is today. But literally hired me in 2 minutes. I filled out my paperwork, and then I was working.
Okay.
In an hour.
Wow.
And they were so short-staffed, and I found out why. I know why
it was not the best place.
No. It was loud. It was hot. It was just nasty.
But you got your discount then from your Avon Cosmetics. So
yeah.
You got your
course.
foundation and your
blush. You get 10 boxes of free
lipstick,
caps, and lipstick at the end of every week.
You get free caps.
Well, that's all we made. We didn't make the cosmetic. We made just the caps. I mean, that's how dull this was, right?
Oh my gosh, that stinks.
Again, I reiterate, 2 weeks to help a friend out.
Jeff,
he's no longer my friend. All right, so be sure the testing environment, of course, is welcome, clean, comfortable, all that stuff that we talked about in the in-person. But I think that
let's get to the testing part.
Yeah, so here's my testing story.
Okay.
So in marketing, we have a company called Ready Travel that we just kind of made up. And we lay out, there's a logo for it that someone made during the process. So we had someone make a logo for it. We had someone write a description of the company, all that.
Okay. So I've had this happen. I did actually at a testing thing when I tried out for a sales job. They're like, make a whole sales pitch to a company about what you would do, how you would market their company, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm.
Correct. So what we've done is that through this 5-year period in marketing, we've actually built out the assets. So the last one was give us a marketing campaign, right, on Ready Travel using one fun and one corporate. One kind of fun, entertaining, Ready Travel. We're going to go to the beach. We're going to go do these things. And the other one kind of serious, really serious, like we're, hiring for, or we're going to be traveling corporately.
Okay.
And so when they come in or when they fill this out, and again, this was an exercise that was given a week to do.
Okay? Right. So they had some time to think about it.
Yeah. And so that's a big project, but this was a serious part of what we needed. And when they came back, they were phenomenal. We had 3 candidates, and again, as we get into selection, what do you do when you have multiple candidates that really qualify? But we did have that scenario.
Wow.
And we ended up picking one. But it's so important to know what you're going to ask them, because a lot of people may have never done this.
Right.
It may not have ever been a part. Some of that could be digital. Some of that could be online. Some of that could be in applications.
Just for a little disclaimer, that was my first sales job, and I handed in my one sheet, and they were like, maybe you didn't quite understand what you were supposed to do. And I was like...
But you did get the job because you said it was your first sales job, right?
I know, I did get it. They gave it to me anyway. They're like, you seem like a good sport. Get in here.
Let's do it. Let's learn together.
I mean, it literally launched my whole career. So thank God they did. So.
I think it's important to know with the candidate that this is a job that maybe we're forming. We may not know everything. We may need your help.
Okay.
But can you adapt?
Right.
Okay. So in this testing process, what if your idea doesn't, and even in the interview, what if your idea doesn't get selected? How do you feel?
Well, and that's what my sales manager said. He goes, the fact that you got it all wrong and you took it like a champ. You started laughing in the office. I was just like, well, I'm kind of laughing at myself because I feel like a complete fool. And he was like, no, but that's really good, because sales is, you're constantly hearing no, you're constantly hearing how bad you stink, and you're constantly hearing it's a negative job. It's not easy to be in sales. And so he's like, you actually have a great attitude. So I was like, sweet. That's what I've always getting hired on, my attitude.
Exactly. Your attitude is award-winning. I had someone during the interview that had a broken leg.
During?
Came in with it. Didn't, of course, know when they had broken their leg in the last week before the interview.
So they had a cast and stuff. They weren't like, I'm in need of medical attention.
Well, no. They didn't break their leg coming in.
Okay, great.
So they came in, though, to the interview with a broken leg.
Got it.
And one of the statements that they said is, obviously, you can see I may not be able to start tomorrow, right? Just because of my leg, and I actually have to have surgery on it.
Right.
And they said to me, which was impactful, you'll be glad you wait for me, though.
Oh. I thought you were going to say, they said, obviously you can see I'm a certified klutz.
No.
So keep sharp objects away from me.
Exactly. But no, and they said, you will be glad you wait. And I hired him because of that statement.
Oh, so that worked out?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Absolutely. Yep. They came. And again, we had to wait 6 weeks.
And when you did hire him, were you like, you are worth waiting for?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then I told him, I said, after that, that statement, again, the qualifications were there. The test came back good. All that was, they were qualified for the job.
Right. It wasn't just the broken leg thing.
But that's the thing for me that said, because, we had, 30 applicants. And so we could have interviewed and hired anyone. This person was willing. We were willing to wait. It wasn't something that they were delaying on purpose or anything like that. And so we waited, and it's good.
Interesting. It pays to be honest.
It definitely does pay to be honest. And it also pays to know what you're talking about in an interview, because we also interviewed an IT professional, which our IT professionals, because we have interaction, our programmers interact with our vendor partners in our software company, and they have to have the convenience store frontline worker attitude.
Right.
Most programmers are not known for their personality.
I know, right?
They're just not.
They're
It
kinda
doesn't make them
snooze
bad, and
fest.
it's not every one. So I don't want to make a blanket statement, but it's pretty covering, that they're not known, or they're pretty logical, and they think
they're not so much into the
they're not
razz and the
social.
tazz.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But when we do interviews, because we have them engage with our clients and our vendors, in other words, we have partners and integrations and all, and they have to be on. They have to have that part of their portfolio has to be sharp. They cannot be, just real short with people and things like that. And we've
How
had
do
a
you
coach
test that?
mostly on the phone.
Okay.
Mostly in the phone interview. I mean, not exclusively, but that's where we started with. You can hear how they interact. Tell me a little bit about a coding string or something that you're, formula, and then they go into it. And how they lay that out is important for us. They have to be able to code for sure, but I mean, taking that all into consideration, it's very important for us that they have the right mindset. Interviewing is hugely important to your business and building a culture of convenience.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I didn't know so much went into it. I certainly wouldn't have thought about it from that perspective when I've gone into interviews. In fact, I've got one scheduled this afternoon.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, you better hurry up. We got 45 minutes before you have to get there, and I think it's a 30-minute drive. I already called them. Or they called me.
You were my reference, so.
Yeah, it was bad. And then on the next episode, we're going to cover selection.
How do you get from the interview to the person now working for you?
Correct. And then the offer, we got selection, offer, and then the hiring.
Okay.
Right? So we'll try to get all those into an episode.
You love talking about hiring, Jeff. You get
talking about hiring.
You get a glint in your eye when you talk about onboarding people.
And training. Hiring and training are my two. Yes, they're the North Star here.
I know. You just love it.
Okay. So the steps of the process, right, are very challenging.
Yeah.
They can be, overwhelming for some, because there's also people that if you hear during the interview a personal story of, let's say they're out of work.
Right.
And it doesn't fit.
But it plays on your heartstrings.
It does. And you have to, go in the corner after they leave and cry.
Or toughen up and be like, no, we can't just hire every charity case.
We cannot fill that position just because of their circumstances, unfortunately.
Right.
Okay?
That's good. I like that.
And again, we'll get into multiple candidates. We'll talk about that. So whether you're an entrepreneur, executive, you're either just getting started or you've been in business for 25 years, remember that when you're building your culture of convenience, employee retention begins in the interview process. And so until next time, Cal.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to another episode, and we're out.
Thank you for listening to The Culture of Convenience. For show bios, links, and more, go to cultureofconvenience.com. And as always, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email or leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts.